The library is one of the most popular things in this city. I don't know why we're attacking the library. I mean, I do know why we're attacking the library, but...
We're not attacking anything. We're looking for a proposal. That is the kind of language that incites all this anger and division. You are part of that problem.
Hello, my friends. This is Kathy, the library hunter. I love traveling and exploring beautiful libraries around the world. A few weeks ago, I started to hear about this ongoing story of Huntington Beach Public Library. As you might already seen from my previous video, the debate started a year ago, and the local community is becoming more and more engaged in this important topic through emails, campaigns, petitions, and speaking at weekly city council meetings. They're all asking one question: why allow this private company to control their favorite public library? Today, I'm going to dive into a pretty intense city council meeting that took place on May 7th, Huntington Beach. Community members urge a motion to vote on this decision of privatizing their library.
I would like to take a quote.
I find it hypocritical.
We will hear voices from people of all ages, with different backgrounds and roles, followed by a discussion among the 7 council members before they vote on this motion. Before we start hearing the public comments and discussion among council members, let me quickly walk you through the backstory. And here's my favorite quote from that night.
In a time where people are so divided, this is the thing that brings people together. This is the thing that I've seen that has woken people up from all sides, who love their library, who appreciate their librarians, who appreciate the profession and the expertise that is within our library, that is both a library and cultural center.
Is privatization a real concern, or is it just fear-mongering? Watch until the end, and I'll let you decide.
There's no selling. Privatization is selling our assets, which we're not doing. So that's a misnomer that's going out there.
In fear-mongering, start calling it out. I'm hearing a lot of hand-waving. I've been called a liar. Start naming what I'm lying about. I'm happy to call it out, and I'm happy to walk it down.
I get your emails.
You get my emails. What have I lied about in there?
When you call it privatization, that's not at all what this is.
Privatization is a term that is interchangeable with outsourcing for the lay. That
Words
is
matter.
semantics. Of course they matter, but that is a semantic effort that lay people that aren't into the weeds understanding the difference between outsourcing and privatization. But one can argue that privatization of the management, you're taking the management and you're taking it from a public entity and transferring it to a private entity. Privatization fits that. If you want to take the legal definition of privatization, sure, I'm happy to teach a law class later and we'll go through and define each term. But
let's do some quick research on the definition of privatization. The book, Encyclopedia of Public Administration and Public Policy, is a popular desk reference for many public administrators. Based on page 337 of this encyclopedia, outsourcing the public library services to a for-profit institution matches the definition of privatization. Similar definition can be found in many other references too. And without further ado, let's jump into the local community's comments and city council discussions.
I think the best course of action is to put it to the vote to the citizens. That is the only course of action. Clearly, we're all divided. But the one thing you have done right is you have engaged the citizens, and you can see it right here, and not just this room, not just the overflow, but then the overflow, and the 450 emails. So thank you. You have absolutely done something right.
This issue is bipartisan. There are a lot of conservatives that we are talking to who do not support library privatization. A no vote on agenda number 30 is not a vote to protect kids. It's not a vote to save money. It's not a vote because it's not a big deal or what other reasons we're going to hear tonight during discussion. A no vote tonight will be a vote against transparency and against the voice of this community. Huntington Beach deserves a council that cares about what the community thinks. Thank you.
If council really honestly believes that privatizing our library is what the residents want, then they should allow the residents to vote on this important issue. Residents should have a say in what happens to their library.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Carlos Rubio, and I am the president of Teamsters Local 911. And today I'm joined by many of our members who support our brothers and sisters working in the public library system. I would also like to remind everyone that we should thank our public servants because without them, this meeting wouldn't even be happening. The lights wouldn't be on, the AC wouldn't be on, and some of the staffers that are working the meeting wouldn't be making this happen.
I would like to take a quote from The Art of War by Sun Tzu, that no nation is benefited by prolonged warfare. Now, of course, that was kind of referring to like actual war, but this can be like considered a war, I'm sure. The war on the book ban, the war against the book ban. I don't think it's really helpful, so I think we should default to the easy solution that we've been doing since the creation of our country, to vote on it. Let's get the public opinion. It is a public library. Why don't we get the public opinion? I can't believe I have to get up here to say this. I was forced to be here, now I want to be here. That's wild. I mean, I didn't really know what stance I should be making until I heard what item, I think 30 is, and you know, I kind of support it. It also didn't help that you cut someone else off like half a second early, clearly showing how much you dislike them. That's a little rude, in my opinion, and I don't think you should do it again. With that being said, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Next.
Our library is run by professional librarians. Perhaps some of you haven't been in the library lately, but it's a place where people go to get the advice of professional librarians when they're offering books to their own children. I have 5 grandkids, and let me tell you, every one of them is a different kind of reader. Without professional librarians to guide them, it would be a different kind of world for them. They'd have a different kind of public education. Don't fix something that ain't broke. Thank you.
Thank you.
I find it hypocritical that our council is trying to regulate the books in our library in the name of protecting children, but will also sell the library in the blink of an eye. Private library services have also developed a reputation for not being transparent with the public about funding and individual programs. And until we have accurate evidence to support the benefits of privatization, I remain adamantly against it.
The fact that we would use language that talks about child endangerment and grooming in such unfounded, fear-mongering ways, it makes it really intimidating for parents of young children to come here. So this isn't exactly easy right now to do. But I found that this was really important, and actually my kids wanted me to come because they didn't like that anyone was trying to change their library in any way. And I want them to know that their mom, I want them to see their mom standing up for their future. Because LS&S has shown that it does not save cities money. So I started wondering, why else would you want it? Well, control, right? Because then you can control what's in the library, just like what you're doing now. And I get it. You're like, oh, no, it's a citizens brigade, and they're the ones that are going to decide the books. But you're still telling someone else to decide what books my kids get to see and how I make a decision. So I can't protect my own children. I'm not capable. Like, I can't look at a book and decide whether or not that is okay for my kids.
But Huntington Beach cannot be used as a political football in the aim to cause further division. We need harmony. And when you rob our librarians and our staff of their jobs, when you hurt them, you hurt all of us. And when you hurt us, you hurt the very things that you say you stand for. And trust me, we need literacy in this city, and a literacy of a certain kind. A literacy that says compassion and empathy and humanity and not partisan politics, because nobody in here was born red or born blue. We were born human.
The principle of a representative government, one we have, is that citizens may elect officials that serve the will of their constituents and do what is best for them. I support item 30 because a vote will at least show what the citizens of HB want, so you can know for sure what you are supposed to do as a representative of us. Ignoring facts, let's say the LS&S dream is true and we can save money on a private library. We would also lose the library staff and volunteers that put in hours of work and nearly $300,000 in donations. So in privatizing the library, you are not representing the people that work so the library can be more than just books. You are not representing the people that go to the library for services like the Maker Space or Veterans Resource Center that LS&S is not equipped to support. And you are not representing the generations of people that made our library a center for education and community. Approve item number 30 and at least put the privatization of the library up to a vote. Put it back to the will of your constituents.
The citizens of Huntington Beach should be the ones to decide whether to permit an outside company to come in, lay off our excellent librarians and support staff, and hire inferior non-union replacements at a lower wage. our citizens regularly use and benefit from our award-winning library. They should be the ones who decide whether or not to eschew years of institutional knowledge and experience and entrust a for-profit corporation beholden only to shareholders to come in and take over the management of our public library.
Now, I'm here to urge the council to vote yes on agenda item 30 because I would certainly hope that any public servant would have the competency and decency to ask the people that they serve whether or not they would like to have the most popular part of our city government ripped away from them and ripped away from the public view, which we've all paid taxes into. Speaking of running for office, why wasn't this in your platforms? Why are you hiding your true intentions from the people of Huntington Beach? Who do you work for? Because it's obviously not us. It's obviously not us. It's obviously not the city of Huntington Beach. And frankly, whether or not you like it, the people of Huntington Beach will make their voice heard and will always stand up for our libraries, regardless of your actions. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Huntington.
What's the library? It's not just a library to me. It's a wonderful place to go for my family. My younger daughter has enjoyed STEM programs at Oakview Library and at the Central Library. The librarians take the time to talk to my older daughter about her interests so they can help her find good reads, which is a difficult task. I am against the privatization of Huntington Beach Public Library. There should be more steps in place before such an important decision is made.
My name is Pam Smart. I've lived in Huntington Beach for 48 years, more than half my life. I've supported many issues, but have never participated in any protests or marches against anything. And here I find myself at age 78 marching down the street with a sign from the library. This has got me angry enough to do that. And I do it because it's important and I want to make a difference. The City Council, well, it's hard to find something to say that hasn't been said already tonight because they're all here for the same reason. But it doesn't hurt to say it 1,000 times over. We want to keep our library public. Our public library in Huntington Beach is the pride of our city, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that.
At 82 years of age, because of your actions about the library, I find myself out walking my neighborhood, ringing doorbells, talking to people, passing out flyers about this. It is amazing. I was amazed at some people who don't have a clue what's going on in this city, and I am happy to inform them. And I also have talked to conservatives as well as liberals, and not one person in the 60 households I've visited has been for privatization of this library.
The Huntington Beach Public Libraries have been a continued source of pride for the citizens of Huntington Beach, as evidenced by the many activities and the support of the Friends groups and the awards received. Rather than the monumental decision being left to 4 people who have a relationship with our former city councilman and mayor, which reeks of cronyism, the decision about keeping the library public should be made by the citizens of Huntington Beach.
For more than 100 years, the library has been served by professional librarians that have served the wide interests of the community without political agenda. I question the motivation of the board. Is it trying to influence the free discourse of cultural and political thought?
This institution has served us well, and for over 100 years. Our precious library is not the possession of the City Council majority extremists. If the extremist 4 listened to the heartfelt public voices, they would know that there is no mandate for privatization. If they did their research, they would learn that there is very little cost saving, if any, from outsourcing. If the extremist 4 actually read in public libraries, they would never support outsourcing of professional librarians. It's quite a disappointment to see the majority 4 that they would rather sacrifice quality to line the pockets of our former and unpopular mayor, who is now an agent for East Coast private library firm. then sing the praise of our public library and our dedicated professional librarians. Our library is a treasure that's vital to our community. Libraries foster critical thinking, education, creativity, and pure enjoyment. Please vote in favor of Agenda Item 30 for the people of Huntington Beach. Please direct the city manager to stop further work on the request for proposal until the people have voted in November.
Thank you.
In 2014, the library budget was $4.9 million. Today, the library budget is $5 million. That is a mere $100,000 increase in 10 years. The Friends of the Library, meanwhile, contributes more than double this amount annually, a contribution that will end if privatization occurs. LS&S contracts increase 2.5% every year. It begs the question, why is our city willing to grant a private equity firm a 2.5% budget increase annually while neglecting similar generosity toward our publicly run city library? Our public libraries, along with everyone in them, deserve unwavering protection and support. Next year will be the 50th anniversary of the Central Library, the iconic crown jewel of Huntington Beach. Volunteers like me should be planning a grand celebration, not a funeral.
Our community does not deserve this. With deaf ears to the voices of actual patrons and supporters, you've already restricted access to books, established a questionable, politically appointed book selection committee, and directed staff to provide you with a proposal for privatizing the management of our public library.
Moving on to item number 30. Council members, Kalmick, Moser, and Bolton, please introduce your item.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this item, I think, comes out of a culmination of the last year of conversations we've had with residents and the folks that have come to our meetings. And I think that at this point, we've had librarians quit. We haven't given good policy direction to, I think, what our staff needs in order to be successful, and I think trying to get to the end game that this council policy wants to get to. And because this is something that is so important to our residents, based on this is the largest group of folks about this issue I've seen. It's non-land use based, not a project, not something tangible. This is kind of the ethereal fabric of this city that I think everyone has been touched by in some way or another, by being the first time going to the library, going to the genealogy section, all of the things that we've heard that our library can do and that we've used or been a patron of. And after kind of trying to determine what's the best way forward here to see if we can get some space and really listen to what the residents are talking about, either through emails or in person, or I think just kind of the general overall consensus, I guess is the wrong word, but overall, I guess, vibe of what residents are talking about is that they would like to have a say in this at this point. Normally I'm very reticent to put things on the ballot that aren't legally required, because we're elected in a lowercase r Republican form of government here to represent the people. But because this issue is something that would be years to fix if it went south, we don't have the data to support a positive outcome here. I, again, wouldn't want to ask the voters, because sometimes issues are super complicated, and we're elected to dig in and go through all the nuance and hit all four corners of the box. But I think the question here to voters is, do you like your library currently as it is, or do you think it's broken? And I think that's what this charter amendment and the advisory vote is about. And the charter amendment, which would be for future, say, shall the proposed charter amendment to require a majority vote of the city council and a majority vote of the electors of Huntington Beach to approve any proposal that would change the wholesale management of the library and or any proposal to operate the library with a private contractor that would employ library staff to achieve cost savings be approved. I think that's a pretty straightforward question. It's not super nuanced. I think the arguments for and against could be made pretty easily for the voters. It's, do you think your library is broken, or do you think your library is okay?
We were elected to make hard decisions, and when you take those powers from us, then really there is no point of us being here. And one of the, please do not interrupt. I think this motion is premature. I think it is our fiscal responsibility to move forward with the RFP process and see what they have to offer. This doesn't mean that we're going to go ahead and follow through and go with this company or this plan. But it is our responsibility to do our due diligence and look into this.
We get groups that come to the city, to staff, to our emails, all the time indicating and claiming that they can save the city money. Do we have an obligation as our fiduciary responsibility to do an RFP for every one of those that we receive? I do not think that we do. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. We have received a presentation from staff, and it's right here, on the potential cost savings from this organization. And when we questioned staff, there were a number of issues with this. So it's not just about there's no RFP out there, we don't know, we're not quite sure. We have a pretty good idea if it's the same organization. And that organization, of course, is going to say it can do all sorts of things. But when we start to pick it apart, and we did so with staff, you know, starting at that $1 million mark, we really started cutting that down when we looked at the number of hours of volunteers from the Friends of the Library and Friends of the Children's Library. When we started looking at the donations of $300,000 a year coming from those nonprofit groups, when we only have an $80,000 a year budget for our books, who's going to make that up? There are consequences that are far beyond this council to moving forward with this RFP, and a lot of it is losing so many librarians. But it is not prudent, it is not thoughtful, and it is hypocritical for you to be saying that it's the right thing to do to move forward with this at this moment.
And then the final thing is I was thinking, you know, what's the cost of getting this wrong? You know, what we have seen based on research, and I guess the staff has talked to other cities as well and then shared that information with us. Other cities that have used LS&S specifically or have gone the outsourcing route and found that it didn't work for them. And you know, one of the things that stood out to me was the amount of money they said they had to invest to get their library back to where it was before they outsourced it. And my understanding is that I don't think any of them, the ones that have tried to go backwards, have gotten it back to what they had before. So it sounds like the cost of getting this wrong is really high. And in that case, you know, we all need to jump in the boat together if this is what we're going to do. So I think that, you know, I would really love to hear what the voters have to say about the library and privatization. So thank you.
Councilmember Moser.
I also wanted to thank all of the residents for being here, for their emails, for their fighting for this public institution of our library for so many months, for almost a year, really, in many different ways. But specifically with this question about privatization, in a time where people are so divided, it is something that this might be the thing that brings people together. This is the thing that I've seen that has woken people up from all sides who love their library, who appreciate their librarians, who appreciate the profession and the expertise that is within our library, that is both a library and cultural center. And I would hope that this council would see that and allow the community to make this very important decision. Because again, as Councilmember Bolton said, the cost of proceeding, if it is perhaps the wrong decision, is, I think, beyond what we could even imagine, and we have already experienced some of the costs of that in losing the human resources of our library system. So I do hope that this council can see beyond this moment and look to the future and allow the residents to make that decision. Thank you.
The false question of what's wrong with the library, that's not the question, is it? A group has approached the city and said, hey, we think we can operationally save the city close to $1 million. It's our fiduciary responsibility as city council members to look into that. We fully understand the sensitivity, but the process hasn't even gone off the ground yet. You're asking about, I haven't seen the data, I haven't seen the facts. The RFP hasn't even gone out yet. We don't have data, we don't have facts, we don't have a presentation to show the community. So, and again, this doesn't guarantee any action will take place, but it's an appropriate exercise to explore efficiencies and cost savings for the taxpayer. Perhaps there are things we can learn from this RFP process that we can potentially do ourselves to save money and create efficiencies. Can you imagine removing all city council discretion and decision-making authority over city department budgets? If you put all of those decisions to the vote of the people, then why even have a city council? That's why the voters elect us, to be good financial stewards of their hard-earned tax dollars. They give us the consent to be governed in order to make those decisions and not get bogged down by putting everything to a vote. That's not practical, nor efficient, and definitely not a good use of taxpayer funds and times. Whether we like it or not, past council's actions have created a financial budget situation that is going to be very difficult to navigate.
I think we have enough information. I think that's the point that the residents are making, the ones that have been here to speak. We have enough information to know that we don't need to go forward with the RFP. And I take exception to being accused of fear-mongering or putting misinformation out. These people can figure this stuff out for themselves. People have obviously gone and done research because they're the ones who have shown it to me about what other cities' experiences have been with LS&S. Plus, you can just read the newspaper, and there are reports about other cities and the difficulties they have had with LS&S. So for that reason, I don't think that it is fear-mongering to talk to people about those issues or those questions at all. They have legitimate questions, and they are based on facts.
To me, they're two separate, complete issues. And this is just about getting the numbers right for financially responsible authorities for the city. That's it.
If we're talking about saving money, where's the RFP to go to OCFA? Where's the RFP to go to the sheriffs if you're worried about saving? That's the giant piece of our budget. But we're going after this little piece of the budget. I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm saying that if you are talking about this as a financial exercise in fiduciary responsibility, and let's address some of the other things that were made. And we've already are spending money on this because we're out paying an outside attorney to negotiate with the labor unions. We're spinning the clock at $500 an hour already to negotiate with them. The labor unions filed a claim with the state of California for unfair labor practices. We have upset the apple cart with the 1,500 people that we are stewards for with this. And fear-mongering, start calling it out. I'm hearing a lot of hand waving. I've been called a liar. Start naming what I'm lying about. I'm happy to call it out, and I'm happy to walk it down.
I get your emails.
You get my emails. What have I lied about in there?
When you call it privatization, that's not at all what this is.
Privatization is a term that is interchangeable with outsourcing for the lay. That
Words
is semantics.
matter.
Of course they matter, but that is a semantic effort that lay people that aren't into the weeds understanding the difference between outsourcing and privatization. But one can argue that privatization of the management, you're taking the management and you're taking it from a public entity and transferring it to a private entity. Privatization fits that. If you want to take the legal definition of privatization, sure, I'm happy to teach a law class later and we'll go through and define each term. But what other than that to define
Book
term?
banning. Not a single book's been banned, and you've sent several emails.
I have not said we have banned any books.
I have your emails. I will print them out and drop a copy
I have
off in
not
your
said
office.
we have banned any books. I have said that you have the ability to ban books in the future with this committee by not allowing new books into the library. That is not on the agenda tonight. We are talking about privatization.
You asked where you fear-mongered, and I'm just answering your question.
I am saying here is the extent of what I believe the four corners of that box allow this committee to do, and that's not fear-mongering. That is exercising thought, and that is exercising the extent of which this laws could get to. The library is one of the most popular things in this city. I don't know why we're attacking the library. I mean, I do know why we're attacking the library, but...
We're not attacking anything. We're looking for a proposal. That is the kind of language that incites all this anger and division. You are part of that problem.
We're not selling any property whatsoever. It's talking about contracting out to see if we contract out those services. There's no selling. Privatization is selling our assets, which we're not doing. We're not selling any assets, from my understanding of the RFP. So that's a misnomer that's going out there.
So we want to go ahead and take a vote?
Yes.
You ready? All right. Councilmember Mosier.
Aye.
Bolton.
Aye.
Burns.
No.
Vandermark.
No.
Strickland.
No.
McKeon.
No.
Kalmick.
Aye.
All right, so the motion fails.
Thank you.
3-4.
At this time has. Please stop disrupting the meeting. We are moving on to discuss Shirley Dutloff. Please be respectful.
You're disrespectful to our city and our city's politics. You're a terrible person. There's nothing. I'm leaving already. You can't touch me. I hate you, Casey.
I'm heartbroken.